Okay. Okay, good morning. So today we're going to wrap up on Putnam on brains in a vat and tie up any loose ends from the discussion last time. We left things last time with our very reason being unseated by these kind of arguments. Your ability even to think being challenged. Next week we'll move on to Dretschke and Fodor and questions about whether the mind, understood as representational, can be seen as part of the natural world. Today, I want to start out with this suggestion. There was this idea that kept coming up in discussion last time, that maybe what you want is to be able to peep out from behind the screen of representations that you have. I mean, the screen of representations that you have in perception is being interpreted in light of the causal connections behind it so that they all come out true. But what you want to do intuitively is peep out from behind the screen of representations and see what the world is like. If you or I could do that, the idea is then maybe everything would be all right, but if the brain could do that, the brain would be really surprised. I think that something like that is what one incompetently wants to say in response to Putnam's argument. And I think there is a reasonable way of framing that kind of idea. But to begin with, let's look again at where Putnam leaves you. Putnam says, well, look, I've refuted the skeptic. I've shown that we really do have the knowledge that we ordinarily take ourselves to have. You can say, I know I'm not a brain in a vat, and that's true. You really do know that that's true. But the other way of thinking it that I think was emerging in discussion last time is that what does it come to that you have knowledge of the world anyhow? All that Putnam's giving you is that you've got a whole bunch of representations of the world that one way or another are being interpreted so as to come out true. And that's not the kind of knowledge we ordinarily think we have of the world. We think we know what the world's like in a much stronger sense than that. And one way to put it is to say, instead of saying, Putnam says, that brain in the vat is no worse off than us. The brain in the vat is doing just as well as us, so far as its knowledge of its environment goes. And anyone's natural reaction is to say, but the brain has not the first idea as to what's going on. It has no idea about the vat and the vat tending machinery and all that. And so what Putnam is giving us is that we are no better off than such a brain. We too live in a world of whose intrinsic nature we have no comprehension. But nonetheless, we are being fed a whole bunch of representations that are true. But surely we think we're doing better than the brain. Don't we really know what our world is like? And you might argue, naturally, we don't know what our world is like. Because if you think of how physics describes the world, back in the 17th century when mathematical physics first got going, the Newtonians were very fond of pointing out that on their view, think about what this room consists in, according to physics. It's mostly empty space. Even the tables and chairs and you or me are mostly empty space. It's just lonely atoms floating in the void, more or less loosely congregated here and there, fundamental forces, but none of it's the way we ordinarily think it is. So if you think of our situation like that, it's actually not too different from that of the brain in the vat. The brain in the vat doesn't have any idea what the vat tending machinery is like. We don't have any idea what ultimate physical reality is like. We are simply projecting our sensations onto this world. But none of that's actually reflecting what's going on out there. I mean, this is just an artist's impression, you understand. But what's going on out there is stuff like this, right? Alien stuff that you never thought would be going on. You see what I mean about the parallel in that picture between our situation and that of the brain in the vat? Yeah. I mean, one way to start getting at this is to say, suppose you think of the brain in the vat using words for colour. It says that things are grey or green, red. Does it know what it's talking about when it uses the colour words? I mean, nothing in the vat. I mean, suppose the vat tending machinery is, let us suppose, uniformly grey, or maybe it's a bright red or something. But none of that bears any relation to the colours in terms of which the brain in the vat is thinking of its environment. So what's your hunch? Does the brain in the vat know what it's talking about when it talks about colour? Put up your hand if the answer is yes. And if the answer is no? So that's a small and cautious majority in favour of yes. Right? But does it have any knowledge of the colours in its surroundings? Put up your hand if you think the answer is yes. And if you think the answer is no? Okay, a somewhat more confident majority that it's no. Yeah. Okay, so if that's right, then Putnam's response to skepticism is leaving it open that what the brain thinks about the colours in its environment is all wrong. Right? So if you are in the majority there that said no, you must be thinking the words for colours don't actually work the way Putnam thinks. Because if the words for colours work the way Putnam thinks, then all that the names for red, blue, and so on are they're just names for various configurations of the vat-tending machinery. Yeah? And so when the brain says that's red, the brain is right, not wrong. So if you voted no there, you have thereby rejected Putnam's argument. How can that be? Isn't there any respect? Why would you reject Putnam's argument? Yes, sorry?
Can you explain that one more time? Why saying that the brain doesn't know the colors in its environment rejects Putnam's argument?
Well, when the brain says this is red, what does red mean? What gives the word red its significance? Well, according to Putnam's argument, it's a causal chain from the use of the word red back to whatever the external cause of the use of the word red is. Yeah? But what does that causal chain go back to? It goes back to various configurations of the vat-tending machinery. So when the brain says this is red, what the brain is saying is this configuration of the vat-tending machinery falls into this particular subset of configurations of the vat-tending machinery. Yep. And that's true. That's not false.
It seems a little different than knowing the colors of its surroundings. Configuration of vat-tending machinery.
Yeah, I agree it seems different, but this is like a little bit like last time. It's really, I want you to articulate what's going on here. Why is Putnam wrong? Is Putnam wrong? Are you really saying that? Are you telling me that Putnam's wrong? That's fine. I mean, that's the that's the approved answer, Kat. Yes.
I mean, one of his like terms of phrase is like, well, that if there's a tree in front of it, what it means to say that there's a tree in the image or something. And here would be like, well, it's red, then it's red in the image. And
That's right.
Yeah, it's red in the like that's red.
Right. You already know what redness is from that, from the image. Yeah.
So that's, I guess, maybe one thought.
Okay, but that means rejecting the causal theory of reference. Right, the thing about the tree in the image is you don't know what that means except in virtue of the causal chain. Yep. What you're saying is, red in the image, you know what that means. Who cares about the causal chain? Yeah. So you're abandoning a causal theory of reference there. 1, 2.
So, if I'm just referring to my experiences themselves, since they surely have causes outside of my mind.
Right.
You know, like if I were to, assert that when I'm talking about red, I'm not talking about the object which I think is red, but the quale or whatever, the qualia,
Uh-huh.
would that be rejecting the causal theory of reference because the causal chain goes further than my experience itself?
Okay, well, when we talk about color, right now I mean to be talking about the colors of physical objects. Yeah, I mean just the way we usually talk about color. Paint, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's not a characteristic of your sensations, is it? Paint? No, I'm just checking. Right. Okay. Okay. So, okay, I think that's very well put. What you guys have been. Oh yeah, you've got a question.
So
Yeah.
granted that there's a causal connection there, that the experience of color is caused by the configuration.
Yeah.
But then the brain, can we say that the brain doesn't understand what red means?
It doesn't
So
understand.
It uses the word red. Kind of like how a scientist communicates with the brain and tells the
Yep.
brain, your brain is that. But like you said last class, well, the brain doesn't understand it.
The brain doesn't understand it. Yeah. Okay. Last class, you and Melissa jointly brought out that there can be causal chains in the absence of understanding, like when you're using technical terms you don't know very well. Yeah, something like that. I think that I gave too weak a response on behalf of the causal theorist there. I was thinking about that afterwards. I should just have said that's a matter of degree, that distinction, and all it really has to do with is how much information you have associated with the term. I think that would be the right first pass answer for a causal theorist. Yeah? If you've got a lot of information associated with the term low temperature physics, then you understand. If you don't have a lot of information, if you just got one or two pieces of information associated with it, then you don't understand. That's all it comes to. That's not a big deal. Right? I'm sorry, I say that to give you the chance to reply.
So, well, maybe understanding, maybe that's right about understanding, but I thought the question was just if the scientist says, like, hey, you're a brain in a vat,
Yes.
to the brain, and the brain goes, "I'm a brain in a vat," then the brain will have spoken truly, whether, I mean, the issue is whether now
Yes.
the brain is able to say something that is true. Maybe whether or not the brain understands
Right.
what's been said is sort of
I see. Yes, I'm happy to give you that. Only what the brain in the vat is going to say is, I don't know that if the words brain in a vat there were being used in the same sense as I regularly use them. Yeah. Okay. But there's a lot of mileage in this. That's why I brought it back up. Yeah.
So it seems to me that I guess like how we define causal theory is that there are two essential elements, right? So the initial batch,
The-
and then the chain of communication.
Right. That's Kripke's form. Yeah.
Okay, to refer to the same thing.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that the second element can still be grounded in individual intentional states, or the same intention to refer to the same thing, right?
That's right. It's got to be. You've got to keep intending to refer to whatever the person
so
before
that
you.
doesn't refute, so that does not, I don't see how it contradicts with the fact that we can say we know what it is, because I have to intend to refer to something, I have to intend and know what
Right.
it is, right? So I don't see why it's contradictory to this claim.
To this.
We can know what our own culture
Yeah.
is.
Well.
So I mean, some people can be wrong, but
Mhm.
then that chain still, ultimately, is still grounded in individual intentional states or
Okay.
individual understanding, whatever you want to call it.
I really agree with the intuitive idea you're putting out here, but what I want to highlight is that idea is not there in the causal theory. I mean, there's no notion of understanding in the causal theory over and above the causal chains, right? There's your dossier of information associated with each term you use. There's the causal chains behind that, and that's all. These are just empty representations being given significance only by the external causal connections to your surroundings. So if you say, yeah, but I know what I mean when I talk about red, where did that come from? All you have is a causal chain in the representations.
I thought I might be totally wrong the whole time, but I thought what the external meant was just like, it's outside of me. It's
That's right, yeah.
people's opinions.
That's absolutely correct, yeah,
But
yeah.
then, so I can still then the way I can get hooked up with that causal connection is that I have to know, or I have to intend the same intention, right?
Okay, you intend to, with red, say, you could intend to refer to the same thing as everyone else refers to, yep.
And so you still need to have your own intention and know what it is, right?
Know what it is, but the thing is, what does know what it is mean? That doesn't add anything else. All you've got in the causal theory, what I mean to do in just a moment is try and give you the thing that you're saying must be there, yeah, and I just completely agree with that, yeah. But the first thing to get is that that's not there in the causal theory. I mean, one way to think of it is, remember Locke and the inverted spectrum, the marigolds and the violets and all that, yeah? Then your sensations, or your colour sensations, are round the other way from mine. So would it be right to say that I know what red is and you don't? You think it's a kind of green, right? Well, the idea of the causal theory was that's not right. All these sensations are just arbitrary signs for the colours, for the physical structures out there. They might be states of the vat tending machinery, they might be patterns of electromagnetic radiation. That's all they are, these internal sensations. I mean, there's no particular, they could be round the other way and everything would still work fine. You'd still be representing just the same stuff, understanding in just the same way. In fact, there might not be any sensations there at all, just a selection of signs running through your head, and you'd still know just as well what the colours were. That's what the causal theory is saying. Yeah? I mean, the causal theory is claiming to give you a full account of the way that language and understanding work. And if it isn't, I mean, I take it you're unhappy with that.
I'm just confused.
Oh, well, it's my job. Okay, think about that and come back. Yeah, okay. 1, 2, yeah.
Okay, when you're talking about something like color, for instance, can't you say that color is causally reducible, but not like if it's ontologically irreducible?
Ontologically irreducible.
Yeah, so like in this regard, when you're talking about like the causal connection, we can understand color in terms of, for instance, like frequency.
Yeah.
But let's say like I think Jackson, when he proposes the argument, like Mary the scientist, she can know everything about the causal connection between color in this regard. But like the causal theory disregards namely one specific and very important part of it, which is like the subjective experience of color.
That's right.
So, like, I would like to say, or at least I believe that we can understand color in terms of the objective. I'm sorry, in terms of the subjective experience.
Yes, right, right.
That that we have. So we can't understand color just in terms of the causal explanation that it offers.
Okay, that's the key point I want to home in on, right? That there is some work being done by the subjective experience, yeah, in our understanding that isn't described by the causal theory. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like it leaves out the subjective element.
Very good.
We can understand color like frequency 427.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of
Right.
for instance. But not to leave out the subjective experience of what it
Okay.
means like to see that.
Can I ask the last question? Or is what he just said filling out what you were thinking? You don't know? Okay. Right. Okay.
I'm saying it's not like
Okay. I think yeah.
Whether or not we're in the back, a colour term picks out a set of terms.
A colour term picks out a set of what?
Terms, so like things that you want to call red.
Yes, right. It applies to a whole bunch of different things, yeah.
So it seems to me that whether or not you're in the back is going to change what terms you actually pick out. Whether it's like states.
Whether you're in the back, it'll change which things you pick out. Yes, sure.
Yeah, but so it seems to me like what it means to say I know what it means to say something's red is I've got a rule which tells me what terms to pick out.
You're right, I've got a rule, yep.
So it seems to me it doesn't really matter whether you know what the actual reference are.
Yep.
Set of terms, as long as I can agree with you what set you're going to pick out if we're both
Right.
or not. That's what I need to understand it. It seems okay to me to say that I don't know what the set of red things actually, what reference they actually are, as long as we can agree on the set of red things.
That's a very good statement of the causal theory, and that throws out the last question or suggestion that subjective experience is very important here, right? That's what a causal theorist has to say, is what you just said. Yep. So, is this a way of putting what you just said? If physics is right, the world isn't at all the way we usually think it is, right? That's the thing about fundamental particles and all that, gluons. Where are the people in basic physics? You don't talk about people in basic physics, right? You just talk about particles in the void, yeah? So what experience is doing, what subjective experience does, is it just gives you some signs of what's out there and ways, as you put it, of applying the terms to these various things. Right? When the sensation pops up, you say, oh, I'll use the word red for that. And that's all that's going on. And so long as you and I agree in which things we call red, then that's all that can be required. Yep. I thought this was playing back to you, what you just said.
Yeah, well, actually, I would say that I disagree with the first statement.
Ah.
If physics is right, then the world is exactly as we understand it. Because the measure of good physics is it agrees with our intuition about the world.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. No, I completely get that. Right. So all there is to our ordinary understanding of the world is what the causal theory describes, and we do just fine in that score, just as the brain in the vat does just fine in that score.
Causal theory,
Yeah.
as I understand it, it's really, the ultimate measure of any philosophical description is whether or not we're happy to accept it, and that's if it chimes with enough of our intuition without anything else.
I don't agree, but okay, but that's a very large claim about any philosophical theory. But yeah, it's fair enough for the present context. 1, 2, and then we should move on. Yeah,
Okay,
1, 2.
sorry. You said as long as you and I agree about what we're referring to, and I was thinking about like the passing of the sign between person and person, and then if you're a brain in a vat, and you're actually just, if I'm a brain in a vat and you're actually just a state of the machine,
Yes.
and I get a word from you, do you actually have intention to refer to anything? I feel like that wouldn't actually be in the state of the machine. Like we couldn't possibly have the same.
Yes.
There's no causal chain.
Yeah, that connects back to the thing I was raising last time about the brain in the vat's understanding of the concept of other minds. Yeah, whether it can take, whether it can really be, there is that picture Putnam has of all the brains bobbing about in the same vat, but it's not really a social picture that, it seems to me. So I agree there's a whole kind of family of problems there about whether the brain in the vat could properly be said to be communicating.
Or even, do you need, if you get a sign from somebody else in the vat, do you need to have their intentions to be referring to something?
I don't think you've, well, it seems to me you couldn't really take that as communication, what's going on. Because after all,
I know, but,
yeah.
okay.
So I just agree there's a real sticking point there for, every time I look in a different place, there's a whole set of hands. Okay, can you give us, I'd really want to hear what you say, but can you give us a soundbite? And, yeah. But can you put it,
I think the first statement is right.
Uh-huh.
Because the skeptic can go in and say, well, you don't know which world you're in, whether you're in the normal world or you're in the vast world. And because of that, you don't know which language you're talking about.
very good.
You don't know
Okay.
whether you're talking English or whether you're talking Basque. And that's important because what the language you speak shifts the truth value of what you're saying.
That's very good.
relative to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
world.
There's some sense in which you don't know what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. And as came up before, there's that sense in which you can say, well, I do know what I'm saying. I'm saying that, and then you use the same words again. Yeah. And these will certainly have the same meaning as your first set of words. But you don't there's some sense in which you don't really know what either of them means. You haven't got some external yardstick that you're calibrating them both against and saying it means this rather than that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're in Russia, I'm just dying to know what the causal theory has to say about, it referring to experiences themselves.
Right. Well, okay, you're moving me on very nicely. Okay, right. So I think the question here, what some of the questions have been sticking at really is the idea that your subjective experience only gives you a kind of phosphorescence that might be being generated by some perhaps quite alien world out there, and in that sense it represents it, that it's a reliable sign of one or another phenomenon in this alien world. But the idea we've had, the idea of Russell had with acquaintance is that you've got knowledge of what the world is like that's provided by consciousness of it. And acquaintance is really the key idea, that if we want to articulate what people have been saying about, well, you've got to have understanding or you've got to have subjective experience, it's really acquaintance that we've got to talk about. So I just want to move on now and talk a bit about acquaintance. Okay. So here's Russell. We'll say we have acquaintance with anything of which we're directly aware without the intermediary of any process of inference or any knowledge of truths. So if you think about that picture of dodging out from behind the screen of representations, Russell thinks that acquaintance isn't a matter of representing the truth about something. So we had this example last time. Suppose this is your mind, right? Incidentally, you must never ever write down this kind of diagram. And if you quote me as doing it, I will deny it. But just between us, this is your mind, right? The big circle is your mind. And as you can see, you've got a pain there, and it's kind of a medium-sized pain, right? It's not like a big headache that's filling your whole mind. It's quite a big one, but not, anyway. And you can suppose that causes you to say, I'm in pain. But it would really be such a strange and unconvincing picture of what's going on with the word pain to say that it's just standing for whatever sensation it is that caused that. I mean, with a word like, with tree, Putnam saying, well, tree might stand for a state of the vat-tending machinery, or it might stand for an earthian biological phenomenon, or it might stand for a twin earthian biological phenomenon, depending on what kind of causal chain's behind it. But you can't get twin earth cases for pain. I mean, because you can see the pain is right there inside your mind. You see what I mean? I mean, it's not linked to your mind by some causal connection. It's right there inside it. You know exactly what it's like, the pain. Yeah? So that's a role for subjective experience in providing you with knowledge of what the word pain refers to. That isn't just a matter of you being hooked up to the thing by an initial baptism and a causal chain or something like that. I mean, it wouldn't occur to anyone to say, I mean, unless they're really some maniacal Kripkean. I mean, Kripke never said this, right? Indeed, on the contrary. But you'd really have to be pretty hard line to think, well, you don't know what pain is aside from the cause, there being something behind the causal connection to your use of the signs, I'm in pain. Right? So if a causal theory just breaks down here, we don't even want a causal theory of what I'm in pain means. Yep.
So, say the brain in the back
Yes.
takes an aspirin,
Say the brain in the back takes an aspirin, right?
and they're no longer in pain.
They're no longer in pain,
It seems like that was all dependent on the machinery that was hooked up to that brain. They could just enter a new state of things being hooked up in that machine, and suddenly they would say they're not in pain anymore.
That's right.
So then it kind of seems like maybe pain is still just a function of the state of the back system, and it's not really just in the mind.
Whether you have pain is determined by what's going on in the vat-tending machinery and all that. And maybe the pain is constituted by the brain, but your knowledge of what pain is, I mean, a twin earth case here would be where the bit of your brain that does the pain is getting all worn out. And the surgeons say, well, it's very good for you to have a pain circuit. So they swap in a different, an artificial pain circuit. Yeah. Then you get something physically different there. That's kind of like a twin earth case, right? You've swapped out the usual cause. It's like a spot case, right? Someone well-meaning has come and put in something that looks just like the old one, feels just like the old one, yeah? But has the reference of your word pain changed? No, you're feeling pain just the same way you did before. I mean, if the thing works.
What if I
You could talk like that, but I guess my point is we don't. That when we talk about pain, we're talking about the qualitative experience. And that could be exactly the same, whether you had an implant or not. I mean, that would be the point of the implant, to make sure you had the same kind of experience. If it didn't give you pains, then they wouldn't put it in.
Just because it's the same experience doesn't necessarily mean it picks out the same thing, though, does it?
No, I think that's the same thing. It's the same experience, picks out the same thing. There's no difference there. Let me put it another way. You're trying there to use reference in a kind of technical sense that doesn't really connect to why we use the words or what we're up to when we're using the words. Yep,
Yeah,
good.
On
Yeah.
that example too. So even if my the go away of my pain is caused by taking an aspirin,
Yes.
it doesn't mean that I know when I feel like I don't feel the pain anymore. Doesn't mean that I know exactly it's because I took the aspirin. So it doesn't require me knowing what external cause made it to have knowledge about my own sensations.
That's right. That's very good. I mean, suppose that the surgeons don't give you an aspirin. What the surgeons do is they give you a pain implant. Right? Suppose you're saying, for God's sake, help me with this pain. And what they do is they take out that bit of the brain that's driving the pain and put in a surgical device that has exactly the same function. Yeah? And that generates the qualitative experience too. And you say, oh, thank God, I don't feel pain anymore. Well, you do feel pain, right?
We feel pain all
Yeah.
the time, and then we don't necessarily know what caused it sometimes. But I can still say, hey, I know I'm feeling painful here.
That's right. You don't know what the underlying basis is, but you know that you're in pain, all right. Okay, so is that okay for making it intuitive that you don't want a causal theory for words referring to pain? Put up your hand if you think, yes, that seems fair enough. We don't want a causal theory for words referring to pain. Put up your hand if you have no idea what I'm talking about. And if you think, yeah, we'd still do want a causal theory for words referring to pain. Oh, okay, right. Even despite all this? I mean, do you see what I'm arguing in the other side?
Yeah, why can't your pain just be considered part of like the external world, but even if it's like subjective?
Well, because it's not, I mean, I don't know in what sense it's part of the external world.
Yeah,
It's,
I wouldn't call it external at that point, but I mean, like, it can just be like a fact of the universe that there is pain.
well, that's true, yeah. That's the poignant fact.
Like, when you say like this pain, you're just referring to some pain that happens to be in your mind, somebody else's mind.
Well, that's true too. But the thing is, you know what the pain is like. Let me put it like this. Here's what I'm saying. Your reference of pain isn't fixed by a causal chain. You know what the qualitative character of pain is.
Why isn't it fixed by a causal chain? If you have like a pain or a
Okay, well, you know what that pain is like. That's right. But that's what I meant by, you're not, that's too close to you for it to be a causal connection. That your knowledge of the qualitative character of the pain is tighter than something that you're merely causally connected to. And if you're merely causally connected to it, there could be lookalikes. Yeah, there could be something that felt just like pain. I mean, if your knowledge of what pain was, or was just a causal connection, then something else could be substituted at the other end of that causal chain and give the same output. Yeah. But that doesn't seem possible for pain. There can't be lookalikes for pain.
I mean, tell me if, like, even if everything out in the world, even if I were a brain in the bat and everything in the external world were, weren't real, and despite, that every statement that I can make about the external world could totally be false. But when I'm saying that I'm like consciousness is sensing pain or I am in pain, I can't be wrong because I'm referring to something within my mind itself.
That's right.
Okay.
You're playing back to me the key idea I'm trying to articulate here. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think that's correct. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is where you see a kind of acquaintance, a kind of pure acquaintance picture like Russell's at its strongest. Yeah, it's not a causal connection. It's a more primitive kind of thing than cause, and it's also not a matter of representing the pain to be one way rather than another. You know, and I was saying last time, what does it mean you peep out from behind the screen of representations? Well, this is a case in which you really do it. It's not that if you've got a blinding headache, it's not that you've got a screen of representations of your headache. You see what I mean? You are confronted, that's why it's so awful, right? You are overpoweringly encountering the actual thing itself and nothing short of that, not just a representation of it. Yeah. And that's what's letting you understand what you're saying, while you fix the references of your terms. Right. Last one, yeah.
Okay, but nevertheless, I want to say that there is a cause to a headache.
Oh, headache has a cause, sure, yeah,
But
yeah.
what you're saying that the sensation is not fixed by that causal chain.
Your knowledge of what the sensation is isn't provided by a causal chain. Yeah? Okay. So I say the following. You're free to disagree with this, but I say the following. The reference to the word pain isn't fixed by a causal chain. It's fixed by your knowledge of the qualitative character of pain. So the word pain applies to anything with that qualitative character. And you know about that qualitative character by, well, acquaintance is just Russell's word for it. Russell says acquaintance is more basic than knowledge of truths. Knowledge of things of the kind we call knowledge by acquaintance is essentially simpler than any knowledge of truths and logically independent of any knowledge of truths. So that's the thing about peeping out from behind the screen of representations. It's not a matter of representing the world to be any particular way. You're just getting the thing itself. Here's what Russell on colour. He says, I know the colour perfectly and completely when I see it, and no further knowledge of the colour is even theoretically possible. That's to say, with water, you can say, well, I splash about in the water, I encounter it, but then I can ask, what is its chemical composition? Well, tell me what this stuff is. With red, when you encounter redness, you thereby know what the thing is, and there isn't any further question to be asked about what that thing is. You could discover lots of truths about red. You can say red is traditional associated with alarm. It's used in heraldry in the following ways. You can use to paint fire engines. You can discover lots of truths about redness, but your knowledge of what the thing is, you can't improve that. There is no more to what redness is than what you encounter and experience. So you might think, well, he's really talking here about the colour sensation. So this is just like the pain case. Yeah? You're looking inside your mind and you're talking about the colour sensation. So it's not really interestingly different to pain. But I think that's not right. So suppose you can try this right now. This is like an experiment. Find something red, right? Like if you would stand up. Oh, nice better, yes, right. then just, okay, so you all got a sensation of red, right? Now focus on your sensation of red. Okay, I see at least half a dozen people staring intently at me or at you. Right. But that's not what I mean, right? Don't focus on him or on me. Focus on your sensation. You see what I mean? Sorry?
Well, isn't the sensation here like the sensation itself? Like the experience of it, but you can't.
You can't what? No, I agree, you can't do it. Yeah, that's my point, right? Yeah, there are always these moments when you're doing philosophy where you and the person you're talking to wind up staring very hard at the furniture. And this is one of them, right? Yeah.
Even though focusing on a particular place in my mind corresponds to my eyes doing something and looking in a particular
Right.
direction, doesn't mean that, like, I mean, when I'm focusing on red, it's right here, and it's right here in my mind. You know?
They're in your mind, but over here and over there are not in your mind, right?
Right, but the redness isn't on you two. You know, the redness is, you know, it's,
Well, how come you have to focus on us to see it, to get the sensation?
I mean, it's like if I,
Sorry? That's right.
Years.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they're totally analogous, and just because seeing things, is a matter, is like a kind of distance engagement.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a distance, and it's.
It's kind of a Zen thing. You have to focus on the thing out there in order to be focusing on the thing in here.
I think that when you're focusing on a pain, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're kind of pointing.
I see at your body. I see what you're saying.
Your eyes,
Okay.
You're not using your eyes, but it's like it's still the same sort of function. You're still talking about the
Right.
piece of your mind itself. Even though it corresponds to my eyes doing something and pointing at a particular
Okay.
direction, I have no pointing for the outside of my
Yeah.
mind itself.
I don't want to try to knock over that view. I think that, you could perfectly all work out a view like that. I just want to state the opposite perspective here, which I think is, how should I say, it's simpler to state the other perspective, which is there's nothing in here when you're focusing on colour. There is no colour sensation in here. The only colour is a colour out there. And when you're attending to the qualitative colour, you're attending to a characteristic of the external object. That's what I meant when I said paint. Right? The way it's painted.
I mean, the fact that there are colorblind people, doesn't that totally disprove the theory that two people can have see two different color experiences, detectable differences in experiences, show that color can't be something out there on the world?
No, I mean, there are people who can't see at all. That doesn't show that everything is inside your mind. Everything you see is inside your mind. Do you see what I mean? The fact that some people can't see it doesn't show it's not there.
I mean,
It just shows there's some of the world they can't
just
see.
saying that, I'm just going to let it sit. See if I can
Good. Okay. Everything you're saying there is perfectly good. It just needs a lot of discussion. I really just want to state what I think is a simpler perspective. But there are good reasons you could give for the kind of view you're stating. We've only got a few minutes left. Can you guys remember what you're saying for just a second? And let me. I just want to labour the point I'm making right now, because I really have to get to this before we have to pack up. Here's G.E. Moore stating the kind of idea that I've just been trying to state. That Moore's picture is when you have visual experience, right? When you're experiencing a colour out there, when you're experiencing a chair, when you're seeing someone, seeing someone in the sense of just literally seeing them right now and getting a look at them. There are two parts to it. There's consciousness, and consciousness is a generic term. It's a bit like being a yard away from. I mean, you can be a yard away from practically anything, right? So you can be conscious of practically anything. And all sensations are alike in that they involve that relation of consciousness. And then there's something else in respect of which one sensation differs from another. And that second term is the object of the sensation. So this is just, it's not that Moore happened to come up with this. I mean, I got it from Moore, if you see what I mean. But the idea is that if you're having an experience of something yellow, then there's a yellow thing out there, and there's your relation of experiencing to that. If you're experiencing something purple, there's the purple thing out there, and there's your relation of experiencing to that. That's what I meant about the jerseys, right? That the only red thing is the jersey. The experience itself does not involve any colour. The relation of consciousness is just generic. So that seems to be a really intuitive picture of what's going on, just as you look around the room and get colour sensations, what we call colour sensations. There are these two parts to it. There's the coloured stuff that is out there, and then there's the experience itself, which is a relation between you and that thing out there. So here's Moore again. When you refer to introspection, and this actually goes over the dialogue you and I were just having, when we refer to introspection and try to discover what the sensation of blue is, it is easy to suppose we have only a single term. So you're looking for the sensation, and you look at the blueness, and you don't get the consciousness as something distinct from the blueness. You see what I mean? You don't feel that you've got two parts there. The term blue is easy enough to distinguish. So you see the redness, you see the blueness. But the other element, the consciousness, that which the sensation of blue has in common with the sensation of green, that's extremely difficult to fix. And in general, this is a phrase that you could meditate on for hours, that I have meditated on for hours. In general, that which makes the sensation of blue a mental fact seems to escape us. So what makes the sensation of blue mental is not the blueness, because you can focus on the blueness all right. Right, that's when you're staring very hard at the furniture. You're getting the blueness perfectly well. But when you try and introspect and say, now it's not just that there's blueness out there, there's my seeing it, my experiencing it. Let me focus on that. Every time you do that, it seems like you don't manage it. You just wind up staring back at the object. Yeah, this is like these problems with Frege on mode of presentation. Yeah, indeed, arguably it's connected to them. That whenever you try and identify the mode of presentation, you just wind up staring back at the reference. Yeah. In general, that which makes the sensation of blue a mental fact seems to escape us. It seems, if I may use a metaphor, to be transparent. We look through it and see nothing but the blue. So whether you agree in the end or not, you see the force of this way of putting things. Yeah. So the thing is, this way of putting things suggests that you can know about the qualitative character of pain just by having the pain, right? You just encounter the pain. It's not a matter of causal chains. And that can fix the reference of what you're talking about when you talk about pain. So similarly, when you're talking about the colors, you're talking about a property of external objects. The thing that gets painted on to the external object, you're talking about that property of the external object you painted onto it. And you know about that in the same kind of way as you know about the qualitative character of your pain. You know about the qualitative character of the world out there by encountering it in experience. And Moore goes straight for it here. He says, I am as directly aware of the existence of material things in space as I am of my own sensations. Right? So that's what we think we have that the brain in the vat isn't getting. We are encountering the qualitative character of the world around us. We know not just what our sensations are like, but what the world is like. And if we were a brain in a vat, then things would be very different qualitatively to what you think they're like. So I hope this is giving, for some of you guys who are pressing against Putnam last time, this is me trying to articulate that sense that Putnam has missed out the key thing about what the world is like. We think it's not just that we're causally connected to our world, we know what it's qualitatively like. And if things were as they are for the brain in the vat, the world would not be qualitatively at all the way we think it is. Yeah? So this is an alternative to the causal theory. It tries to catch what seems to be missing from Putnam's picture of our knowledge of our surroundings, but it does now mean that we think we have knowledge of what our environment is like, what the qualitative character of our environment is. Experience is telling us not just about the qualitative character of our pains, but of the colours of the chairs, the shapes of the chairs, all these other characteristics of the world around us, the movements. You get all that from visual experience. But then the skeptic seems to be returning because we've now reopened the possibility of radical error. You see what I mean? This is like the skeptic's revenge. Putnam seemed to miss out something, and now in his picture of what kind of knowledge we have of our surroundings, we say, but we think we do have this kind of knowledge from experience of what the quality of our surroundings is. But at this point, it's open to the skeptic to come back and say, but you might be wrong. And indeed, hasn't physics shown that you're wrong? And on that bombshell, we'll pack up for today. Okay, great questions, guys. Thank you.